with Commissioner Daniela Levine-Cava, and she got her coffee there. And Daniela was a wonderful presenter, keynote at our summit in Miami in December, where we tried to bring together the sectors in Miami-Dade. So we're so thrilled to have her here. I know tomorrow is Commission Day, and so we're just great to have you, Daniela.
Well, thank you so very much. And the answer to the first question, why I am here, is that I am a democracy addict. And I have been since childhood. So how could I not be here? Anything that will advance civic engagement, that's my passion. It undergirds why I ran for office. It's been a primary organizing factor in my career and my life since really since I was a small child. So the first I was conscious that I was a democracy addict was when I was about 12, when I was living in Brazil at the time, and I understood that I was living in a global society, that I was not just an American living an American lifestyle and taking it for granted, but that our position in the world as the United States was really critical, and that I considered myself not just affiliated with my hometown or with my country or my family or my religion, but really considered myself a citizen of the world. My mother at the time was working with children in the favela. She was teaching girls to embroider so they would have a better future, and they were coming to my house, and I was actually kind of jealous of the attention that they were getting. So it took a real mind shift for me to wrap around the idea that this was critically important, and I think became a critical factor in my life. And when we moved back to the United States shortly thereafter, I started volunteering to tutor children in the inner city of Chicago. Since then, it's just been a natural phenomenon. So volunteering in high school at a Montessori school in a depressed neighborhood. In college, I ran the Big Brother Big Sisters program. In law school, I volunteered at a children's psychiatric hospital, etc. But I will say that for me, civic engagement is about moving from service to advocacy, or the charity and justice dialectic. And I think that there's a continuum. Sometimes people do start on the advocacy side, but most people start on the service side about something that they really care about, and then they see an injustice or an opportunity to make a bigger difference, and that's how they get into the advocacy side. I want to mention now that with the charitable deduction under assault in the new tax reform bill, that really reminds us that this country was built on a robust civil society. We're not a direct democracy, we're a representative democracy, and civil society fills in the gaps. So anything that imperils that wonderful tradition is something that we have to fight very vociferously. I was also asked what is most important. Should I go to the second question?
Sure.
Okay. What is most important to be addressed here today? And my feeling is motivation. Where is the motivation for engagement? How do more people become democracy addicts? What is at stake, and why do people engage? And I've developed for myself over the years of doing this work, which is too much to get into, 1, 2, 3, developing civic muscle. And I say to young people, I say to old people, I say to anybody who will listen, daily, you must have a daily dose of information, of clear information about what is happening in our community and in our world. Weekly, you must engage with your community. You must go out and perform a volunteer activity or go to a community meeting or something that makes sure that you are in touch with something other than your telephone. Monthly, you must speak up. You must express yourself to somebody to let them know what you would like to see change, whether it's to write a letter to the editor or call on an elected official or whatever, participate in a meeting like this. This would be the monthly dose. So the the daily, weekly, and monthly dose. And along the way, critical thinking skills can be restored, because that, I think, is a critical missing component, and I hope that critical thinking will be part of our conversation. We're just being fed pablum for the most part, and people are accepting it unquestioningly. And then the third thing I was asked to address, and I hope I'm within time here, is what would be an outcome that I would hope for today's meeting. And so first I'll tell you a personal one and then a more global one. Personally, now that I'm inside government, after having petitioned government for so many years, I feel that inside-outside strategies are critical. How do you work collaboratively with more of the people inside government so that you have their back and they have your back? It is three legs of the stool: civil society, business, and government. And if we do not work together strategically, we cannot achieve great things. So I'm trying to perfect my inside-outside game, and welcome learning more about that here today. But overall, we've got to change the numbers, guys. Florida's in the toilet. We've got to change the American Community Survey outcomes. We have to figure out how we can turn that around. We can't just be a fantasy land, a playland. We have to be a place where people really recognize that the future starts here. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Daniela. Jeff, we're going to, Ava Erde, Ava, I'll, if you'd like, I'll even give you control of the slide.
Thank you.
If you need it, I'll
Sure.
help up front.
Sure. Good morning. My name is Ava Edie. I'm the library manager at Manatee County, and libraries are changing places. And I think for me, I was very excited when I first learned I was going to get to represent the Florida Library Association at the Florida Civic Advance. And I believe the importance of strengthening civic engagement can only enrich each of our communities. And especially in these troubled times where incivility has really become commonplace. The initiative is growing as more organizations join together to find a solution and new paths in deepening community understanding and leading to long-term improvements, I'm hoping. This summit provides welcome opportunities to collaborate and develop an awareness of civic undertakings and assets. As a library director and a public servant, I'm constantly seeking additional information to help support the communities Manatee County serves. Decades ago, Andrew Carnegie invested millions into developing public libraries which provide access to education and culture for the common man. They continue to be the great equalizer for our communities. Libraries are trusted places in government. It's an unusual exception where government is not always trusted, and yet for us, public libraries and our staff represent people that are unbiased. We offer all sides of an issue, and we really encourage people to make their own decision on them. We've become a gathering place and a community center. The 21st century public libraries focused upon responding with services, resources, and programming to community-identified needs. Some important civic engagement roles we play, which aren't always so obvious, is that every time we sign somebody up for a library card, we help them register to vote. We've become early voting centers, and we hold special elections as needed. We become conveners of things such as the Harwood practice, where we turn outward and we go out into the community and facilitate community conversations and debates and discussions. These are kind of natural roles for us. We've also convened community support. After Irma and the No-Name Storm, FEMA and Operation Blue Roof met all the community members at our libraries so people could have that additional support to get what they needed. AARP, taxes, or also to help with driving and safety courses. We have provided support to help build communities. Young mothers, for instance, seniors with our Creative Aging series, and also with different ways to help build intergenerational connections. We have this great chess and checkerboard. It's life-size, and some of the intergenerational games that occur as the kids teach the seniors and vice versa. So these are some of the ways that, between those and typically acting as government depositories where we really help the public to review the documents that help them to understand what's being planned by local government. We also offer access to all information for all ages. Again, that concept of being great equalizers. So for us, the most important question I would like to see addressed is how do we help facilitate productive, keyword, productive, civic discussions in these turbulent and politically charged times? We have a lot of discussions, but they end up going in many, many, many directions. As you can see from some of our slides, some of the things that we have done is hold job fairs. We hold community conversations. We help with small business expos, those kind of things. But almost anything, as each of you know, can jump off and turn in civil quite easily. And we really want to figure out how we can make that a more productive way. For me, the most important outcome, that third question, is the result of this summit would be a larger, more comprehensive network of all of us understanding the existing and often innovative civic practices and encouraging further collaboration.
Thanks, Ava. Yep. So, Todd Green.
Well, good morning. Okay, all right, good. So I'm Todd Green from the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, and I'm here with my colleague, Mels Dazoo. Mels, can you wave at everyone? And so we're happy to help to be here to support this conference, and this is such an important topic. First of all, you may be thinking, well, why is the Fed even engaged, or why would we even be thinking about this topic? So as you know, we're responsible, at least partially responsible, for our nation's economy. So beyond thinking about issues that are the two most important issues for us, which are inflation and also full employment, what's really behind that? But what our real intention is to really create an environment so that everyone has an opportunity to benefit from the type of economy, from our economy, and have a great life. And so we know that our nation is not necessarily headed that way, but our leadership is definitely focused on how we can improve this opportunity for all people, and that's really important. So at the Fed, the work that I and my team are responsible for thinking about is really unlocking not only our economic or financial capital for individuals, but we also think about our human capital and our social capital. And one of the things that I love about this particular conference is that we're also focused on civic capital. Pulling them all together is really the right answer. I don't think that it's okay to isolate each of these things. We definitely have to look at these as a collection. So one of the reasons that I'm here, or the reason that I'll say that I'm here, is, Bob, is there a way to make this bigger, to full screen this?
Yeah, sorry.
So this is why I'm here. So this is one of the reasons why I'm here. So this is a chart about economic mobility. And essentially, it is the ability of someone who was born in the lowest 20% to move in his or her generation into the highest 20%. Now, we might say that that really isn't necessarily a goal that we should have as a society, but we should at least think that that should be an opportunity, an option for how we think about moving forward. But if you'll see, and maybe I have to explain the chart to you, but maybe it might just be a little obvious. Dark is not good. Dark is bad. And so my team is responsible for thinking about these issues throughout Florida, Georgia, Alabama, parts of Tennessee, Louisiana, et cetera. But if you'll notice that Florida is really not in a good position. So this is just yet one more factoid about how we should be thinking about what kind of society are we building, and what are the types of interventions that are necessary to kind of make this happen. Well, the second reason that I'm here, so Daniela told something personal, and I'll tell something personal too, but Mel's is looking at me. No, I promise it won't be too personal. Well, my personal story is that I grew up in Liberty City. I grew up in Miami. I grew up in a neighborhood where all of this is true. So if you can take this and make it even darker, I don't know if there's even like a black kind of aspect there, but I think that would be the case there. And certainly I wasn't the smartest person in my school. That wasn't really the case. But I was a person who was given opportunity. And so by having that opportunity, I think that's allowed me to kind of move on and do other things and not escape my neighborhood, but be in a position where I can beat some of the odds that we see represented here. So how do we do that? What needs to happen next, and why is this such an important issue? So one important outcome for me, and we had a little bit of a discussion about this yesterday, is we have got to inform our citizens about, it's really tough, and let me just say my comments are my own. I do not represent Chair Yellen for as long as she's going to be there, et cetera. These are my own comments, but we've got to do a better job of educating our citizenry so that they are not voting against their own economic interest, right? So this is so important. We see this from Medicare expansion to all sorts of issues, and it just makes me sick when I think about in my own community where I'm from in Miami, when we think about the number of people who have voted. Like I heard that at our summit in December, that the number of people who are actually voting for mayor in Miami is just abysmally low. So we've got to figure out a way, and I don't mean dumb it down. I mean put information so that people, ordinary people, not the people in this room who already know, but people can make better decisions, and that they can be thinking about their own interest when they go to the ballot box. So thank you so much. I really appreciate being here.
Great. Thanks, Todd. Lila Jaber.
Thank you. In addition to all of us being here because Bob asked, right? But just to focus on the topic, I'm going to answer hopefully all three questions all at once, because I really can't distinguish them for purposes of what I'm about to share. Bob wanted me to share personal stories and really come at this from a business perspective. So I'm Lila Jaber. I'm with the Gunster firm. It's a law firm, and it's not your ordinary law firm. And trust me when I say that. I know that all lawyers try to say that, but it is for those of you that have worked with us personally, you know this to be true. We are employee-centric and community-engaged. What that means is if you are not engaged in your community, you will not get hired by Gunster. It is that cold or that important to us. And here's why it's important to us. We think it defines someone's character. So I do this presentation that was inspired from my then 12-year-old daughter. Now she's 13 going on 30. And we were going to school one day, and she was in yet another argument with her 10-year-old brother, and we have a game, she and we come up with an acronym for things I want her to remember. And this particular day I was talking to her about patience and integrity, having compassion for her brother, and I said, you know, these are the things that define your character. And for crying out loud, could you be a little bit humble? So I said, so let's come up with, you know, what is that? And I'm Arabic. Muslim in Arabic, and I said, hey, pick, P-I-C-C-H, and she goes, Mom, that's pich. So pich leadership is what we live and die by at Gunster, at least for the people that I work with, and it goes something like this. The C, whether it's compassion or character, it's really about what can you do for others in a thoughtful way, and yet serve your own platform and that of the clients, and at the end of the day, you're serving the state of Florida, because after all, that's where we live, that's where we play, that's where we grow our business. So for us, that's what I mean by I can't distinguish it, because it's all important to the core mission of our company. So if you were to open the Gunster Strategic Plan, you would find page after page after page about civic engagement. And you would find page after page about thoughtfulness, and page after page about compassion and character. So, personal stories. I served a number of years on the Florida Public Service Commission, an entity that regulates at the time, telecommunications companies, natural gas companies, and water companies. Over the years, the electric companies had said to all of us, we have an aging workforce. not really a pipeline of people to replace our aging workforce. And so we've got to be more aggressive doing something about it. In other words, more people were leaving than they were able to bring in. Kind of stored that away. We did what we could in the position that I was in and at the national level. But I always stored it away, just a personal passion, personal interest of mine. And then I had the opportunity to serve on Workforce Florida, then Workforce Florida, and the conversations would come up again. So I thought, what if in your personal life, for those issues that you have, for which you have a passion, you could do something about it, again, thoughtfully, the business eye toward it. What if you could use your voice to do something about it? So in 2015, I launched Florida's Women in Energy Leadership Forum for men and women, because we don't move the dial when we're just talking to each other. You got to bring people in the room that are in a position to move the dial. So Florida's Women in Energy hosted the first forum, 2016, early 2016, right here in Orlando, and we brought together almost 200 people with the idea of celebrating the highest-ranking women in energy so that they could share their personal stories about their success. Again, in the spirit of you're not moving the dial if you don't bring the right people in the room. If we're trying to recruit new talent, then I needed to go get the students. So thankfully, colleges and universities all around the state lent me at least one student. So Gunster sponsored, again, practicing what you preach, Gunster sponsored the students in the room, and we strategically placed the students next to a utility executive, an energy executive. And with the left hand, I told the energy executive that he or she needed to take that student under their wing and tell them about the industry. And if I could just get one student hired, then that forum served its purpose. And I'm very, very pleased to say that we got more than one student hired the first year, and a few hired the second year we did it. So making sure the right people are in the room to make a difference in a thoughtful manner. So it wasn't the women in the industry saying, I don't have a spot and I cannot move up. It was the women in the industry saying, this is what I did, this is what's left to do, and most importantly, allowing them to share their personal stories so that we could learn from it. The second, I'm going to start calling them best practice, because it answers the question what I think we can do, all of us, going forward. The second best practice is, for those of you that know my husband, he and I own businesses in Tallahassee, very small businesses in Tallahassee, Cigars of Tally and Heels and Handbags. So in buying the plaza, turning it into a two-store plaza, and perhaps some people have visited often. Jeff, just saying, not to call you out or anything. The cigar store, guys, the cigar store. Opening those businesses, it occurred to both of us that had we not had the right relationships in Tallahassee, those businesses wouldn't have opened as fast as they did. And so I went to a friend of mine in Tallahassee. We were having lunch one day, Sean Pittman, and I said, why is it so hard to open businesses in Tallahassee? I don't get it. And he said, your timing is perfect. It's been on my mind. We don't have a minority chamber. We don't have a grassroots effort to help small women and minority-owned businesses establish themselves. So we established the Big Bend Minority Chamber that serves the Big Bend area in Tallahassee. It's it's Leon County, Gadsden, 5 counties in the Big Bend region. And we're coming up now on our 6th year. And the approach is grassroots for these small women and minority-owned businesses who are usually a one-man shop. They can't close their doors to attend chamber meetings or attend workshops, so our team goes to them. And I think we're making a difference. So the moral of that story is what I hope that we all do, again, preaching to the choir, my hope is that you each think about what you can individually do to move that dial and make a difference. But I also hope that you share the information, because I think that when we share the information, we can inspire others to do the same thing. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Lila. All right. Yeah. And then Jeff Johnson.
Good morning. we all belong to each other, and we need to find new ways to live that out in Florida. I'm the State Director of AARP, and we are a Florida civic engagement experiment for going on 60 years. We were founded in California by a retired school principal who, once retired, figured she needed to give back to her community. So, to point to the dialectic Daniela mentioned, she started off in service to her fellow retired teachers until she found out they were being left out of the system, they were being excluded, and so she formed an advocacy organization called the National Retired Teachers Association, and in 1958, enough non-teachers begged to get in that she formed the American Association of Retired Persons. So we have not so much worked on civic engagement as worked through civic engagement to accomplish whatever it is AARP can be said to have accomplished. We need to find new ways to remind each other that we belong to each other. This isn't just a mushy topic. There's a lot of science out there that says that we are evolutionarily wired to work together and live in community. And there's a concern that we have in our foundation, our charitable arm, that those who are low-income, frail elders are at risk of one of the greatest health crises that our nation has faced, and it's a crisis of isolation. That the person who is isolated is in worse shape from a health condition than somebody who smokes 15 cigarettes a day. That if you had to choose between being obese and being isolated, your better shot at a healthy life is obesity than isolation. And we don't have the civic structures to make that up. Not here in Florida especially, frankly not in the country. We're going through the sort of change that the nation went through with the Industrial Revolution when people moved to the cities. And when they did, they formed all sorts of new associations. You see groups like the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, and any number of other groups start up as people found new ways to live together. It sounds old and cliched at this point, but as we move towards an interconnected age that works through our phones and our pockets rather than through our neighborhoods, we need to find new ways to leverage that to help find the neighbor who will bring you chicken soup when you're not feeling good. Or, as we discovered during Irma, we'll check on you to make sure your power is back on. One of the things that we discovered after Superstorm Sandy and after Katrina was that the best indicator of whether somebody would survive and thrive after a hurricane or other major disaster was whether they knew their neighbors and whether their neighbors knew them. And in Florida, for a variety of reasons, we don't know our neighbors. Most of us, probably many of us in this room, are Floridians and claim to be Floridians and maybe even were born here. But there's a lot of folks here in this state of 20 million people who came from somewhere else and still associate with back home as not being here in Florida. For many, particularly the folks who are AARP members, they are retired here, which retirement gets translated into an extended vacation. And most of us, when we go on vacation, don't invest a lot of time in building social capital. And so, unless you're the particularly extroverted person who meets everybody at the pool when you're at the hotel, you're unlikely to practice that when you move into retirement, which you think of as extended vacation. So we need to find new models and new ways to engage folks. The same is true for those who come from other cultures, may speak other languages, may be used to other civic structures, and they need to find new ways to build civic engagement, to build connection. And the same is true with the millennial generation that has been raised with smartphones as opposed to those of us who have learned it on the fly and have no interest in ever joining the civic structures that maybe worked for previous generations. We're unlikely to see them joining our Rotary Club and our Kiwanis Club, and we need to find new ways to develop ways to meet them. So my hope is that over the next couple of days, and frankly over the next couple of years, we as a civic advance collaboration find those new structures that help connect Floridians to each other in a way that reminds all of us that we all belong to each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.